This is the Startup Junkies Podcast. These are stories of people who are afflicted to innovate and create the next great products and services to change lives. Today, we are re-releasing an old podcast with junk headbands. In this week's episode, you will be listening to Michael Eisman, a former Startup Junkie, and well-known Jeff Amrine. Junk headbands, known nationwide for their athletic headbands, in 2021 are celebrating its 10th anniversary and brand new partnerships with the NFL and NHL. So be sure to check out Junk Headbands for any last-minute gifts for the holiday season, and let's get into it.
This is Jeff Amrine. This is the Startup Junkies Podcast. This is about those stories for the people that are afflicted with creating the next great products and services that are going to change lives, not just in America, but worldwide. We're going to tell the stories of the next great beer producer. We'll tell stories of new product and apparel makers. We're going to tell the stories of those people that don't accept the status quo and that want to make things better. Welcome to the Startup Junkies Podcast.
We are live for another episode of the Startup Junkies Podcast. This is our first episode on some new equipment, so it should sound better. If not, it means that I did not set up the settings correctly. But this is Michael Eisman.
And this is Jeff Amrine.
And our guests today are Kourtney and Beau Barrett, who are some serial entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about starting junk brands from an idea all the way through acquisition, and then a lot of other different scrappy businesses, and maybe what's next. Yeah. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Michael. Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
So we were talking about a few different things beforehand. Can we start about chickens and then we just go from there? You can start with that.
We'll build on that.
Yeah, we can just go from there.
You want me to cover that?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know this side of the story, so a little disclaimer. When we had originally started Junk Brands, we're actually working on multiple ideas. And one of those ideas that we had formulated and working on for almost a year was a backyard urban farming concept, and we developed a brand called Urban Chicken. And at the time, I'd gone overseas and sourced and designed chicken coops. You know, that was before the big phase where you see them all at Tractor Supply and where they're at now.
Backyard chicken coops.
Backyard chicken coops, like urban chicken coops, okay. Right?
So it wasn't like chicken with tattoos or
no,
they were cool chickens.
You know, it's funny, totally polar opposite, like branding than what we, than our true kind of alter ego.
Gotcha.
But a passion nonetheless. The farm to table and.
Yeah, I would say we still kind of follow that, but just it's not a business of ours. So we had developed this brand and had imported chicken coops, and so we had like a container, like a load of chicken coops, right? And so we were developing how are we going to sell this, distribute it, and whatnot. And this was at the same time that Kourtney and I were making an exit from our real estate company that we owned, and we're like, hey, let's we've got tons of ideas. Let's just rock and roll.
Just start.
Do something. Let's just start. Let's do something. Yeah. So we had, when we had started Junk Brands, we had this idea developing. We had the product, and we were moving forward with that. And why don't you take it?
Yeah. So it's kind of a simultaneous, right? So we had these chicken coops, and we were going around really Northwest Arkansas, selling the coops and putting them on Craigslist, and just getting the word out that hey, you can have a chicken coop in a lot of the cities around town. You can have 4 hens, and just educating people on having coops in their backyard, and also starting to gather other data on what other products could we sell with this backyard farming brand.
And yes, we do have chickens today in our backyard with these coops. Yeah.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah.
Do you still use the coops that you were selling then?
I bought one from Tractor Supply because we had sold them all.
Yes.
So you were definitely eating your own chickens.
We were,
No.
eating the eggs.
No. Yes, just the eggs.
Gotcha. Just the
These
eggs.
are
Okay.
pets.
Sorry.
Pets with
All right.
benefits.
Yeah.
Pets with benefits.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's a good category.
Good tagline.
Yeah. So the chicken coop story really it parallels with the Junk Brand story in the beginning, because we were launching both. We were launching Junk Brands, but really the Urban Chicken was getting most of our attention in the beginning.
But you decided at some point, I'm not going to do the chicken thing, and the Junk Brands thing began to really take off. So talk about how did all that happen?
Okay. So we're selling chicken coops, and we're having a little bit of a difficult time with getting the entire container absorbed here in Northwest Arkansas. So we started to put Craigslist ads out a little bit further out of town. And then we ended up loading them to Amazon. And we ended up selling a chicken coop way up in the Northeast in Amazon. And we thought, okay, well,
awesome.
that's great. And then it came time to ship it. And those weigh, what do you think they weigh, Beau?
Oh, they were like 100 and something pounds, 200 pounds.
So it ended up costing more to ship that thing, hundreds of dollars, than we were going to sell on the coop. But
family vacation.
we thought there's an opportunity here as well, because we had been selling the headbands. We'd gone to a couple of small events here in town, and we had some really great feedback. We were doing CrossFit at the time. We had gotten great feedback from some CrossFitters that we know, as well as we were in a couple of retail stores here in town, Fat Tire, Lewis & Clark, Rush Running, and we're starting to get some traction, and we really felt like it would be great to go on a road trip, get out across the country, outside of our comfort zone and people that we know, and talk about junk brands. And I think we could have a new crowd to buy these chicken coops.
So it's a 2-for-1.
It's a two for one. But what Kourtney didn't mention, she was 7 months pregnant at the time, right?
So perfect time for a road trip with the chicken coop.
Totally. In the fall of, this was the fall of 2011, and that is when, fall of 2011, when we were pulling through Starbucks, and Kourtney had made her headbands for years and kind of been her signature look. And everywhere we'd go, people would say, man, I love that headband, or there's several times that they bought them off her head. And when we pulled through that Starbucks on South Walton in Bentonville, the lady at the counter was like, man, I've got to have that headband. And it was like, ding. I was like, we got to make these headbands. I turned to her and said that. And so
that was the inception of Junk
Yeah,
Brands.
bam, that was
really
it. That
was.
was it. And so we were like, well, how do you do that? We had no idea,
Because you were hand sewing them at that point,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Or hand constructing them?
honestly, at that time,
time,
I
they were
wasn't
worse than that.
sewing. I still don't really sew today, but I was just buying fabric that kind of had this unique look and the material that I liked, and then I would cut it, fold it up, wrap it on, and tie it.
Got it.
It was pretty
Got it.
basic.
Wow.
But apparently...
So the finished looked good.
Yeah.
But what was underneath was just a bunch of folds and whatever else.
Got
right?
it.
It's
Yeah.
true.
It was a roll-up scarf, essentially.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was something that kind of scratched an itch for you.
Yeah.
You didn't have a good workout headband, right?
Yeah,
And that was
and it just
kind of what started it.
and the fashion accessory that just I felt like it was a little more unique and added to your regular white T-shirt type of look. So I got a lot of compliments on it, and one day, like Beau said, just dawned on us when we heard it loud and clear. And Beau just said, we should do this. Why don't you make and sell these? I hear this all the time. So we did. We just started. We put a Craigslist ad out. We got someone to start helping us make.
We had a quote
headbands.
unquote distributed workforce.
Yes.
As in people with sewing machines in their houses. So
Yeah.
okay. So that's how it worked. But in that fall in 2011, we had so we were developing the headbands. Kourtney had gotten out and sold some at like Springdale Boutique Show, got into some relationships that we know, like the Rush Running, those things. So we were actually getting some traction with the headbands to where we're like,
And so this fall 2011, both the chicken
Yes.
coops and the headbands are pretty much just Northwest Arkansas products.
just
Yeah.
Northwest
Okay.
Arkansas
Definitely.
products. Totally. And so, and again, Kourtney was seven months pregnant. And then come February 2012, so after we had our third one, 5 weeks after we had our third one, Kourtney and I were like, okay, we basically tested both these things out locally. We feel like they both have some legs. We got to get outside of Northwest Arkansas. So we used that opportunity, and I can't remember the timing of that up in the Northeast with Amazon, but we had an order in the Northeast, and we're like, you know what? Let's just go deliver it, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, what the heck? So we loaded, and why we're doing this to justify it, we had a little 24-foot RV. We loved RV, by the way. And then we pulled a trailer behind it, and we stacked it full of chicken coops and full of headbands, right? I mean, just chocked full.
Like everyone does, right?
Yeah, right. Chicken coops and headbands, you know how it
you
is.
vacation, Jeff? Yeah.
It's exactly like that.
Everybody wants to make money on the road now.
So I'd be driving, and Kourtney would be in the other seat, probably on her phone or whatever else, and putting Craigslist ads in that direction.
Yeah.
As you're heading up the
As
road.
we're heading up that road.
Exactly.
Just-in-time sales.
Just-in-time sales, exactly. And so and we would go, and we'd get these responses like, hey, this is when the chicken coops were really hot at the time, and we're like, okay. So we would veer off maybe 30 minutes here, an hour here, and we had no agenda. And so we said,
People
okay,
were
let's do it.
so curious. First of all, they're like, Arkansas blades, like, what's going on here? What are you guys doing up here? Why are you selling these? And we would say, oh, but check out this other thing that we're doing too.
So we would,
And our response out of the junk headbands was greater than it was the chicken coops. People
Got it.
Well, and we went from town to town, and whenever we would sell a chicken coop, we'd go to that town, we'd get the cash for the chicken coop, whatever it was, and then I would go work at a local CrossFit box or a gym and bring the headbands. And needless to say, around 5 weeks later, we got back to Arkansas, no headbands, no chicken coops left. And that's when we looked at each other and said, well, which one do we want to do?
Yeah.
The shipping costs are lower on the headbands, maybe,
Oh.
right?
That was
Inventory control, so many things.
So many things.
Right.
So
And
many
we already had people asking about customization and wholesale accounts for the headbands. So it made a lot of sense to push forward with that one.
So that
Wow,
is when
cool.
Junk Brands was
story.
really, truly where we started to really invest a lot. I mean, of our time and focus, and we ended up packaging up the chicken coop business and selling it to a local guy that
Okay.
did very, very well with it. Took it into some big box retailers that we know locally, and
It's
and
Urban Chicken Lives On.
Urban Chicken lives on.
I love
No
the name.
kidding.
I want to know how you came up with the name.
For junk? Yeah, so about maybe 6 to 8 months prior to Junk Brand starting, I was in our bedroom one afternoon and I just had this thought, like, wouldn't it be cool if you could develop a really high quality apparel item but call it junk? And that was just, I just kind of put it on the back burner the first day. And then fast forward to when we're making the headbands, I had actually called it affectionately my junk. And it's like, let me get my junk on. I'm heading out the door. Hey, where's my junk at? Just kind of what I called that piece of product that I was making, that accessory. And as we kind of thought through it more, we really liked that the brand didn't take itself too seriously,
Right.
that it was fun, that it was high quality, and just kind of represented our attitude about the whole thing.
It's kind of extension of us, and we'd actually toyed around. Kourtney's just brilliant at branding and naming and those type of things. So she had messed around with that name earlier on because, again, it was a household name for us. So I don't know if it was 6, 8 months before, maybe even earlier, that she kind of messed around with that. But it seemed like both of them came together.
right time, right place.
Yeah.
Brand hanging out there, ready to be activated.
Ready to be activated.
So we used
And
it.
memorable, right? It's not
Yeah.
something where once you hear it once, you never forget it.
Yeah, you just have to elevate the usage of that word.
Sure.
And I think that junk did.
Yeah, I mean, you see it
no
on the
doubt-
back
no
of
doubt
cars
about
all
it.
over Northwest Arkansas, and I'm sure.
And
elsewhere.
honestly, we didn't think it would get as big as it was,
Yeah.
but we personally liked it. It was an extension of us. We're like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah,
right?
why not?
Yeah, why not?
Why not call it that?
What were the so you kind of lived the serial entrepreneur's dream. You come up with the concept. You did this great customer discovery where you had the epiphany on the product by actually out hustling and selling it. What did you like best about that process of going from concept to sale, and what did you like the least?
That's funny because we're here again. But go ahead. That's for later part of the
That is
podcast.
funny.
Forgotten the pain, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
I think one of the most satisfying feelings in the world is seeing someone you don't know with your product on enjoying it unexpected. So that was a real reward. And then through the process in the beginning, it was so exciting to get the feedback back when people would get the product, wear it, say we're at maybe a CrossFit competition, they would get it, wear it, and then the next day come back with, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Do you have one that's wider? Do you have one that, that is a color for my husband? Giving you that feedback, and you're like, we will,
right.
That's coming soon. Yep. So just hearing the data that you need right in front of your target market, and it's kind of like, the cheat sheet on exactly what you need to do to develop more of that niche. What about you, Beau?
Yeah, I feel like with any entrepreneur, when you first create a product, when somebody authentically buys that product, that's not your mom, your brother, somebody that right, that's doing it out of an obligation,
Right.
and they buy that product and they enjoy that product. I mean, that is all an entrepreneur needs to fuel the fire. And for us, when that happened and the development of that product after that, it was literally just all ears. Okay, so what'd you like about it? What'd you not like about it? and we just continue to kind of manipulate the product. And you wouldn't think that, headbands specifically would have a lot of details, but oh my gosh, they do. How they fit, the fabrics, everything about them. So we just listened and developed as people would buy the product, enjoy the product, and became a fan of the brand and whatever else.
How you launder it, and then what it feels like against your skin, and what ages does it fit, and all of those details that you maybe don't think about in the beginning, but then your customer forces you to think about them.
That's the fun and the kind of energizing part. Sometimes scaling is sort of the agonizing, grueling, beat down part of it. We have people issues and infrastructure and finance and all that. Talk about some of that as well.
Can I ask one question?
Please
before scaling. So both the Urban Chicken and Junk are still operating companies without you being the operators. And so they were clearly good ideas, but they were ideas that hadn't really been tested that much. And you were really good at selling them. So you came back with a completely empty trailer. How do you sell when it's not really proven? Like when it's still that early stage company that hasn't really been proven?
I think authenticity. Like, I think people like a story, and people like to feel like they're being a part of something, right? And so for us in the early stages, we're pretty authentic about where we're at in our product and how we came up with it, and people seem to dig it. And so if you come selling that, not like I have this perfectly developed product, it's gonna change your life. You come at it from a different angle of, hey, Kourtney's worn this for a long time. She's developed it. It's awesome. We love it. Hope you'll like it.
Is a product created out of need by doing the 100%. stuff doing the stuff that you love to do.
100%.
So people who had the same interest could take advantage of it in the same way. They could relate. It was relatable, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's the only way. I mean, because we all know that you can tell when people are selling you something, a bunch of bull, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, and we're pretty transparent, just being transparent with folks, and they can feel your excitement about the product.
Sure.
And then you just feed off their excitement, and then it's over.
Yeah.
So
in the beginning you're selling yourself and maybe the why, and it's got to resonate with people, and you'll know pretty quickly if it does or does not.
Now I will say, over time, we developed a product that I was confident, and Kourtney was confident that it was the best on the market.
Yeah.
Period. After just tying it on the heads of thousands of people and tons of feedback, like it really truly became the best in its class.
And then it gets easier.
Yeah. Then the product starts to sell itself.
You've already got the why in the story, and then you've got the best in the market.
Exactly.
Too.
Yeah.
Hey folks, Jeff Amrine here. Thanks again for tuning into the Startup Junkies podcast. Steve Blank, the father of modern entrepreneurship, recently called the book that Jeff Standrich and I wrote, Creating Startup Junkies, a must-read playbook for anyone who wants to kindle innovation and entrepreneurship in their community. This whole idea of building sustainable venture ecosystems in unexpected places gives you the tools, the techniques, and the inspiration to do what we've done in Northwest Arkansas and Central Arkansas in your neck of the woods. If you'd like to find out more, check out creatingstartupjunkies.com. Thanks again.
Right. And that's where the scaling piece came in. I mean, you had to think about a whole variety of processes and maybe modifications to equipment and infrastructure to make it uniquely. Talk about some of that, the good, the bad, and the ugly of that part of it.
Wow,
to the extent you can.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah. So I think for us, part of it's a lot of it, is taking risk on what. Better processes as you get, I think a catalyst for this was we used to, when we created our product, sewing is one thing, and then decorating the headband is a different thing, right? So we used to basically do a rudimentary heat transfer of our logo onto the product. And we get people, of course, it's not, the headband is in great condition and lasts a long time, but the heat transfer will peel off and over time, right? And headbands get worn like crazy. So we get people sending this thing back with like the J is off of the junk, and they would send it back and say, "Hey, love the headband. Can you just re-put the brand on it for us?" And which was cool from a branding perspective. I think we've done it. But then in 2012, Kourtney and I got a call. It's still just worries me. Yes. Hey, we got a large corporation that would like to do a very large order. Can you guys brand it and decorate it in a way that basically
It was to promote a huge marathon.
I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of product for us.
But they needed it custom and they needed it quick.
And they needed it within a price point that, we were able to meet later on, but the only technology we had was heat transfer, and it was not okay.
So you had to say no.
It might be the only time we've ever said no to an opportunity, and I still regret it. Yes.
Yes, so we had to say no.
It truly was impossible.
And so what we had to do from there on, I mean, that just fueled our fire. So
Yeah,
how do we do this to where we can decorate these, the headband? What's the technology that we use? So we basically forayed into a technology that is really complex. At the time, we didn't know how complex it was or how hard it was to get into, but it's called sublimation. And ends up that we ended up getting a huge press or a huge printer. So this is in our garage, and we have a little apartment or offices above our garage. We had a huge printer above our garage and a huge press. I mean, they had to deliver the press with like a forklift into our garage.
But the neighborhood had zoning for that, so you were okay.
Yeah, so I want to give a shout out to the Bentonville, planning commission guys, Troy Galloway, those guys.
Yeah.
They worked with us, and they knew what was going on, and they just were super cool about it.
That's great.
And so that's a perfect example of thinking a little bit outside the box in the city, and it helped.
Good for them.
But scaling, that was our first scaling, right?
Wow.
So we got these big printers, presses, and these sewing machines, but I will say our vision from the very beginning, it was to take an idea, it's to do the entire process ourselves, like a full vertical integration from ideation to the completion, of the product, the manufacturing of the product to the direct consumer sales, and we were able to accomplish that in a big way.
All made in the USA.
All made in the USA.
Yeah, manufactured right in Bentonville, Arkansas.
So scaling for us looked like adding more equipment, adding more technology. And
using what you had available, our garage, until it was truly at max capacity.
Which
it just probably, what would you say, Beau, 20, 25 people?
I think if I remember right, it was close to 30, and at 5 o'clock, it looked like a clown car.
Yeah.
Everybody was...
Yeah, we don't need an office.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It looked
By
like
the
a
end
clown
of it,
car.
we might have had people we didn't even know coming to work
Yes.
in the garage.
And we had people like ironing in our front of our house, because our house, and it was wild. It was wild times, but it was exciting times all at the same time.
And I think everybody felt a sense of pride that they were helping to build a story too.
And was it like crazy growth that whole time with product sales too?
I would say so. Yeah, and really the product sales, the big growth came after 2012 CrossFit Games. Okay, so we were encouraged to go there. I've got a good buddy of mine who owns CrossFit NWA in Northwest Arkansas, Lee Kelly. And he was a big proponent early on in that whole community. I was like, man, this is a bunch of money to go to the CrossFit Games. And he really encouraged me to go and try the product there. And after that, there's so many people coming internationally. I mean, it was just a huge event. And
It's a good launching pad.
Huge launching pad. And it was incredibly successful for us from the very beginning. But finding the subcultures where you can become relevant and grow organically within that subculture is really organic and authentic, especially in apparel. That's super important. And for us, CrossFit was that original, subculture that we got.
Because you were part of that tribe.
We were.
And you could speak the language, you understood what it was all
100%,
about.
and we had a very active local community that really got behind our product.
So this is all still pretty good. This all sounds fun. I want the ugly part of it. I want the ugly, just the things that, I mean, I know you're both very positive people, and the culture there was reflective of that. But what were the things where you woke up and you said,
man,
how am I going to get through this part of it?
Yeah, I can say one, managing people, that's difficult.
It's hard,
for us.
right?
We're really great at the creative and the execution and growing, but when you have, sooner or later, if you get to a certain size, you're going to have drama, you're going to have HR, you've got events teams going out all over the country, that vans might break down, you may not have enough inventory. Let's talk Black Friday. Whoa.
Oh, man.
That's some
when
max heart rate levels.
When you've sold a bunch of product and you can't get it out the door fast enough, I would say people was very difficult for us. And really, if I look back at it, equipment was tough, scraping this drum that melted all your fabric at 2 a.m. because you had to order the next morning, things like that. But accounting too. Accounting, understanding how the accounting flows with, getting the inventory,
we ran a cash business in the beginning because that's what we knew.
Sure.
When there might have been a better way.
There was a better way. And that's one thing that I would really highly recommend for people that are starting out is get good accounting, bookkeeping help to help you understand the landscape.
Sure.
Because that really
sooner or later you're going to need it.
Yeah, so that was really stressful. Website. I tell you what, early on. So there's a lot of things, I don't want to.
You asked the right question. Got them rolling.
Now they're waking up.
I can see.
I'm going to get my diary out from 2014 here.
So when you don't have any money, you do what you can do. And that's really what it is.
Yeah,
You don't have any money, you got to scrap. And so that means going out and, you got a Class B designer with me, and I'm sitting there trying to design the website, trying to pull these subcontractors from all over the country and maybe even, overseas. And that's hard. So you got all this code pieced together. What platform do you use? Things have improved drastically in the last 7 years, obviously. But we experimented with a couple platforms that really gave us a lot of heartache.
Yeah. And integrating those websites with our back end for the whole flow of order on demand, not carrying inventory.
Yeah. So we ended up, I would say technology early on
was a struggle.
The right technology.
Getting the right technology.
Yeah. Because you just don't know what you don't know until maybe it's too late or you guessed right. Well,
But you went way deep on some of that too. I mean, you went deep in modifying some of the infrastructure to be able to do the processes. When we did that tour, it was a year and a half ago.
A year and a half ago.
And that was a well-oiled machine from start. It was impressive. The culture, the process,
just the facility.
The facility.
That makes me so happy.
Thank you. That's Beau Barrett.
It was impressive.
I mean, where we could walk through and you'd see where the designers are, and then they could see where the headbands are actually being printed, and then they're being shipped, and then you had a full photo or a studio.
Yeah.
You had a gym in there for people to work out.
We love inspirational space, and I think that we all feel good about what we're doing when you've got a space that is something you can be proud of. And that was really Beau's doing there, was the design of that building. It was just a metal box when we bought it, and he added all the windows and the cement and the skylights and the brick and just made it an open space where, one, it could serve as an educational platform where we have schools tour through all the time and get kids excited, and as well as a space that employees would enjoy working out of.
Yeah.
Should we transition to the aftermath? You've had the successful exit, and does it make sense to talk about that? So that's one of the things, particularly for a serial entrepreneur, is having a successful exit is what you always think about. But it doesn't come without sometimes some regrets or some thoughts. And how are you feeling about all of it? You've now completely exited how long ago?
We're coming up on 1 year.
Yeah,
on 1 year.
1 year.
So in the first few months after that, was it like being you're not empty nesters yet, but was it like your kids are all out to college, and now what the hell do we do with our time? Or how did you feel about it?
Honestly, I think it's cautiously optimistic because it was an excellent handoff.
Right.
The leadership was great in place. The company that acquired us was the right partner, and we knew that we were handing off something very special to us, to someone that could continue and grow.
And
so
build
that
on it.
Felt good.
It felt like it was in good hands.
Yeah, so we wouldn't let our daughter date anyone. Right.
Yeah.
Just anyone.
Got it.
So, so I think in the beginning it's hard to process that.
Yeah.
You're excited, but you're a little nervous and you're worried, and then there's a little bit of a feeling of insecurity, like, oh wait, this isn't me anymore. How do I separate this feeling?
Kourtney and I, as complementary as our skill sets are together and being at work, we're very different. So for me, I tell people I idle at 1,500 RPMs, So for me, it took a while for that to feel like I had, no responsibilities or whatever else with the company. So that took me a while to actually feel kind of that rush of, relaxation, I guess you could say, or rest. Kourtney can turn things off and on. She's awesome.
I was
that
probably
way,
having mimosas on the porch the next morning.
Yeah, she probably was. She probably was.
And a year later.
And a year later, for sure. No, but yeah, I think that period of time, yes, it was our baby, and it's hard to see that go. Mm-hmm. It really is, and it's hard to see what you worked for and what you started out of your garage go. At the same time, it's continued to be successful, and that's got
to make you feel good.
It does. It feels wonderful. Yeah. It feels wonderful, and we came to the conclusion that we're born to be on the racetrack. Mm-hmm. We're going to do something again. And what that is, that's that whole thing that we're doing.
And you're trying to sort that out now, right?
Yeah.
How many times have you been asked in the last year, what's next?
Oh my gosh.
Probably about 3 times a day, right?
Anybody that we know, they're curious. I mean, I think that people are very proud of the story and they're excited and anticipating, I think they look at it like, what are we all going to do again? Like, this is exciting to be a part of something that someone is authentically starting in Bentonville.
Well, you kind of made the point too. It's like you kind of feel like an artist that's had an album that went platinum, and it's like, it's like Troy Aikman after he won the second Super Bowl. He was like, "Is that all there is?"
Yeah,
and so it's interesting. But I know you enjoyed the journey along the way. You can just tell by the energy that you bring to the conversations about it. So what are you thinking about in the journey? I mean, without giving away any specifics, what kinds of stuff would turn you on again to look at?
That's a good question. So we're working on, at this point, doing due diligence on 4 or 5 different things, right? So we've always done real estate on the side, and that's like over the last year that's kind of kept us busy doing some real estate activity in Bentonville. And
is that development type of stuff? Real estate activity. Maybe flipping houses, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, development and development of residential lots and remodeling several houses, those type of things. So just stuff that we enjoy and creating beautiful spaces.
Yeah, very cool. They would have that in common.
Yeah, all of them had that in common. But so that's kind of a side thing. But as far as like product and branding is concerned, we're literally looking at, we've written down a bunch of things that aspects about the products that we want, what we want them to have. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be a 200-pound chicken coop. In other words, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's got to be shippable. It's got to be things, we still have a passion for, creating things in the United States if we can. Mm-hmm.
Where it makes sense.
Where it makes sense. Mm-hmm. And we want to be authentic in what we do and start out of a community. So there's a lot of things that come into play when we've decided. So for us, it's kind of like when we started with chicken coops and headbands. Right. We're kind of going down a path of multiple things, and then we'll. So
it'll be a bake-off, right? You might take them through some kind of a customer discovery process, and then there'll be some kind of a market indicator or a signal where you'll say that's the one.
Exactly.
That's what you hope for. They said that can repeat itself, kind of like you had with the headbands. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely,
that's exciting.
I think for us, looking at what we're really passionate about too, from a product perspective, what really would change would help us out in our own lives, or what would we wish we would have? Mm-hmm. And Kourtney and I are both incredible proponents of Northwest Arkansas. What we have going on here is unlike anywhere in the United States. And how can we do something again out of Northwest Arkansas that will complement what's going on here? Bikes, what's going on here?
Well, I mean, and you had impact. How many people? Can you say how many people you employed there at the time that how many people did you have working there?
I think at max, I don't know what it is today, but at max, I think it was about 50, and then we had a handful of contractors and a night shift going.
So there's that whole impact from 50 plus people, in addition to all the people that loved the product. There's all those people that had jobs that might have been doing something else.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's part of the positive residue from entrepreneurial activity where you can say, hey, there's all these people that are rallied around the same brand that might have been doing something different that they didn't love if we didn't create this.
Yeah. And, and I would say too, I mean, there's still a lot of long-term employees there. I love to see that. But at the same time, we brought in fresh talent, developed that talent, and that talent's actually moved on.
It's a launch pad for them.
It is a launch pad. There's 2 ways to look at that if you're actually the one, launching people out and investing in them. But that's happened, and there's a lot of people that...
It comes like Junk University.
Yeah, right? Exactly. There's not very many places that you can get a full from design ideation to see your products that you design created, and then the marketing built around it in our photo studios and right in front of your face, and then sold that day online.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if junk spits out entrepreneurs of its own, because it is kind of an education there.
That's what you'd hope for, right? That, somebody they want to scratch an itch and they've learned enough and they take some of that and they go do their own thing. That's what you hope for. That's sort of that. It's not creative destruction, but that healthy, virtuous cycle of people learning kind of in somebody else's shop and then taking what they've learned and doing something on their own. Yeah. And that is more that process recycles, the better the whole economy is.
Yeah, I agree.
And Jeff, you asked about, some of the aspects of the products next. Whatever we decide to do, again, I hope is authentic, and I hope it will contribute to people's lives here locally and nationally. But I really hope that the community, we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we get the community to line behind us instead of just like, oh, these guys are doing something else and kind of watching from the side. How do we get that involvement and that even that early testing or that early feedback? How do we engage the community here as a part of a startup here in Northwest Arkansas?
Draw them in.
How do we draw them in?
Yeah.
And that's something that we're still trying to figure out, but we do want it to be from Northwest Arkansas.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I like that idea too. We went up to Kauffman Foundation up in Kansas City, and they were talking about building entrepreneurial ecosystems. And one of the things I took away, and I may have said this on a previous episode, but was that it's not just about supporting the 3 out of 1,000 people who go and start a company. It's about rallying the other 997 around them to support them, mentor them, invest in companies, buy the products. So I'm a big proponent of getting the whole community involved too.
But that's fun.
And so we always end with, what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs or to yourself formerly? I think I like that question, but also how are you looking at this differently now that you have gone through everything? What advice would you give to your former self, or how are you looking at it differently?
Share some of the scars. What pieces of advice would you do to keep people from, not having a good time?
Wow. Well, I definitely would have spent the money on bookkeeping in the beginning, so where
So more financial controls.
Absolutely.
Investing in that earlier. Yep. That's a good one.
And
I would say aligning yourself to getting the right people that come alongside you. You don't want people that will squash your idea. If I'd have told any of my mentors or anybody that I knew that I was going to start a headband company, they'd be like, "You're crazy, man." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's a certain you got to tone down some of that activity, but getting people beside you that can help you navigate some of the early on troubles that you might have from, what does your website need, what platform you want to be on, who can help you with the books, who can help you with pressure points, trademarks, which turned out, an issue for us later on that we worked through, but it ended up being a lot more expensive and a lot more cumbersome than it was in the beginning. Right? So just being able to help give a little bit of roadmap but still leave entrepreneurs to where they can think big and fail big if they have to, but give them so for us, I think getting people like you guys to come beside people and help them through those processes, because those processes in the beginning really can make a difference as you scale your business.
No, that's great. De-risk it, but not squash the creativity.
Absolutely.
I would agree with that.
You don't want to feel too corporate too soon.
Yeah, exactly.
When it starts to feel like a corporation, it's a good time to leave.
You still want to have beer Fridays, when that starts getting taken away, it might be, your exit may be looming soon, right? Or it may be there.
Good stuff.
Oh, that is good.
I think that's a good wrap, eh?
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you guys so much for everything you've done in Northwest Arkansas and for coming on the show today.
Hey, and when the bake-off, I should say, when the bake-off is complete and you've got that next thing fixed, would you come back on?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks again.
Thanks for
guys.
having us.
This has been the Startup Junkies Podcast. Thank you for listening. Please rate us on iTunes if you enjoyed the show, because that definitely helps. And tune in next week for more stories of the startup founders of today and tomorrow.
This episode is brought to you in part by Wright Lindsay Jennings. The Wright Lindsay Jennings Tech Law Team serves a diverse group of tech-focused startups and established businesses, from corporate formation and investors to intellectual property and employment law. Learn more at WLJ.com. .com.